Hey guys, welcome back to MuscleMentor.net. I'm Brad Hall and this is Justin Harris. And in this video, we're going to talk about why everything you've read on the internet is wrong. Justin, go ahead.
This is kind of a personal pet peeve of mine because I get clients all the time, and I don't mind them questioning me, because I want them to ask questions so I can explain why we're doing things. But whenever we do something different than what's said on the internet, they're always confused and they say, "Well, I read on," and it's always, "I read on this site that you should do this because," and my thought is I always want to say everything on the internet is wrong, and it's almost by definition wrong because no pros are on the internet explaining their cycles or their training or their nutrition, and anybody who who knows enough to earn a living by telling other pros what to eat and how to train and what to supplement with aren't on the internet giving that information away for free. And so what you get is guys who've done one show who happen to be on a Facebook group or a forum who they've done one show and all they know is what their local buddy told them what to do, and they don't know why they're doing it, but they spew that as the holy grail of what you have to do pre-contest. And so that's where things like crazy diuretic use gets passed down by. And so everyone who's competed a lot knows that the key to being shredded on stage isn't being fat at 3 days out and then taking a ton of diuretic and suddenly being shredded. Or everyone that's competed a lot and at a high level knows that the key to being huge on stage isn't being skinny fat at 3 days out, but somehow carving yourself up to fill his size those last 3 days. But that's what gets passed around on the internet. And the same with supplement dosing and strategies, training strategies, nutrition strategies. And so what I always say is, for the most part, is when it comes down to supplements and super supplements, and especially contest prep, and especially final week contest prep, it's almost the opposite of what you read on the internet is what you should do. But it's frustrating as someone who does this for a living because everyone who reads on the internet assumes that at 3 weeks out you're supposed to, or at 3 days out you're supposed to look horrible, small, fat, no muscle, and watery, and somehow magically turn into a pro bodybuilder by carving up and taking diuretics.
At the same time.
Yeah, every day,
Right.
by the handful. And that's just not how it works. And so it can be hard to, convince guys that no, trust me, we're not using a diuretic, but you will actually be drier on stage, as far as subcutaneous water than you would be if we were using this diuretic. Because what they read on the internet is and it's self-propagating, it's self-energizing because Joe Blow reads that on the internet. So he does a show and takes a bunch of diuretics, and now since he's on a show, he's now the
He's,
local expert.
yep.
So he repeats the same thing and the same thing and the same thing. And the only guys who get out of that endless loop are the guys who do the right thing and don't do all those crazy stupid things the last week, and then they win their show and then move up to the national level, and now they're no longer Joe Blow posting on the internet. The
Right.
guys that stay in that loop are the guys who never get out of it and do the right. It's the same thing with training style. You go to any YouTube video and look at any top bodybuilder training, and all the comments are, his form sucks, his form sucks, his form sucks, his form sucks, his form sucks. So 300-pound mass monster's form sucks. You go to any 145-pound skinny fat guy doing, 4 seconds down, 2 seconds up, locking out every rep. Everyone, oh, great form, great form, great form, great form. And so when when all the skinny fat guys on the internet are using great form and all the huge rip guys are using shitty form, you might want to reevaluate what is good form. And it's the same thing with supplements. It's the guys that really know what people are taking, and it varies. Everyone takes different amounts of everything. But the
Right.
guys
Yeah.
are taking aren't on the internet telling you what the pros are taking. And if they are, pros lie. Everyone lies about what they take, depending on who they talk to. There's a few select people they trust,
Hmm.
but everyone else, they make stuff up or lie or who knows what. And so, for the most part, everything you've read on the internet is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And for you mentioned like someone on Facebook, they've done a show. Hell, that is almost an expert compared to some of the forums out there, which are completely anonymous. And half the people on there, like, if you ever do find out who they are, you're just like, holy shit, like what? Like this person comes across so different from who they actually are.
Well, my
It is. It's like that game, like Second Life or whatever those things are out there, where you have like this persona, and now you can be whoever you want without actually doing anything to become that person.
my favorite thing is there's always when a new product comes out or someone tries, uh, Steve Big Dick on whatever bodybuilding forum starts
I know him.
starts his first cycle of growth hormone,
Hmm.
and then 3 weeks later he's supposed to, dude, this growth hormone's great. I'm eating whatever I want. I'm getting leaner and bigger. But Steve Dickface never posts a picture of him bigger and leaner.
Right.
And so everyone else says, well, if you take growth hormone, you can eat whatever you want and get ripped and get bigger. And
Hmm.
there just aren't these magic potions. But someone else reads that, and they want to believe it. They don't have the money to buy growth hormone. But what do? They create that online persona, and so they repeat the same things. What you got to do, get on growth hormone. When you're on growth hormone, you can eat pizza all day and get ripped and get bigger. And so those things get propagated. That's just, it's crazy.
Are you telling me that's not true?
I wish it was, because there's some pizza upstairs right now.
Yeah. So where are good places to get good information other than musclementor.net, which is obviously, the pinnacle of internet information?
I think a good Facebook a great Facebook group is Geared Up
Yeah.
Bodybuilding, and that's a lot of competitors, and there's a number of people. The owner's one of them who tell it like it is, and they lay out their actual cycles. And what's funny is the owner especially will get crap from people because he'll lay out a cycle or what he's doing, and people will bash it because they'll think it's wrong or incorrect. And it's like, no, he's working with like for a show, he's working with someone who knows what they're talking about.
Right.
Doing is actually right. It just seems wrong because it's not what Dickface on
Right.
said, who doesn't post pictures, who doesn't post progress pictures, who doesn't, who's never won a show, doesn't, has claims of doing shows, but there's no contest pictures evident.
Right.
So that's a good form because there are a lot of top pros, or not top competitors that post on that. I mean, there's a bunch of other ones. That's probably the primary one I go to.
Mm-hmm.
There's some podcasts. Luke Sander does a good podcast. A lot of people don't.
What's that one called? The Size Game, I think.
Yeah, the Size Game.
Okay.
And they're funny. That group of guys is pretty funny. And Geared Up does a podcast too. My personal favorite because I've been on it a couple times. but and so it's and you'll see a stark contrast from what people are talking about on there. And what's even more frustrating is because guys will say, some pro or top amateur will be on there and they'll talk about their contest prep and they'll say, well, did you use diuretics for your show? And say, no, I didn't use any diuretics the last week. So everyone on the internet is like, bullshit, he's lying. Right. I know, because Steve Dickface on bodybuilding awesomeness said that you had a ton of diuretics. So I know he must be lying because the guy who's actually there doing it says this, but the anonymous guy says the opposite thing, and everyone else, the anonymous guy, basically everyone always wants to believe that it's more diuretics, more carbs, more protein,
something that they can't get a hold of, or something out there is going to be the magic.
Easier to believe your shortcomings are because you're not taking this thing, or because of something that's out of your control, basically.
Well, one of my suggestions would be something that I heard you say a long time ago, and that's just basic physiology books. If you didn't go to college for this, or you didn't major in nutrition or dietetics or what do you call it, physiology or anything like that. Just pick up a physiology book, pick up an anatomy book, pick up those things, and you don't have to go through and
you don't read all.
Pick and choose the areas. You can drift through. I have like 6. I literally have 6 like here at the house that are just, one I thought had a better section on this, one I thought had a better section on that. I mean, I have a library of like medical from my friends who are in med school, like that they send back to me. And they're like, oh, I think you'd like this. And it's such a great thing because it gives you a background understanding. It allows you to have a bullshit detector. If you're going to go on the internet, you have to have a bulletproof, like the best thing to have is a bulletproof, huge, sexy bullshit detector.
Yeah.
And because if you can't, you're just going to believe everything that's out there, and it's a huge problem because there's so much information now. There's so much information, and only a small percentage of it is good. So that's. Go ahead.
Sorry, example of the bullshit detector. Perfect example. About 10 years ago, on a popular bodybuilding forum, a guy was experimenting with protein-only diet and high insulin doses. And everyone was sure he was onto the key to massive size because he was eating 1,000 grams of protein a day, mostly for protein shakes, and using like 30 or 50 IUs of insulin a day. And everyone was amazed. Well, you can eat protein and not go hypo. That's awesome. He's eating 1,000 grams of protein. He's got obviously going to get huge, right?
Mm-mm.
And what but if you break it down to what's actually going on, 1,000 grams of protein is 2.2 pounds. So
Mhm.
if he was actually converting all that protein to muscle, he'd be gaining 2.2 pounds of pure muscle every single day. But he's clearly not. And why isn't he? He's using insulin with the protein. Well, everyone knows insulin needs a carbohydrate to prevent hypoglycemia because all it's doing is blood sugar into the muscles or the liver. So what does that mean? That 1,000 grams of protein is all getting converted to sugar. All you're doing is making a very less efficient carbohydrate source.
And spending a ton of money.
Yeah, and shitting your brains out. But people don't do the math. 1,000 grams of protein. If you were actually converting that to muscle, you'd be getting over 2 pounds of muscle every single day.
Like
You
me.
know, yeah. So if you're not getting 15 pounds of shredded mass every week, you're using that protein for another source. So all you're doing is using a very ineffective carb source. But of course, everyone thought that was there was a week or two where that was a thread with like 30 pages, and everyone was sure that's what the pros were doing, and that's why they weren't huge and the pros were huge. And of course died out because I'm sure people tried drinking 1,000 grams of whey protein a day with insulin and realized that all they were doing was having nasty shits and not getting any bigger.
This is a while back, and I can't remember where I saw it, but there was a thread that someone started in some forum, and it was like the IV nutrition, like that
Oh,
pros were all used. They were getting like basically like fed, the amount of protein in a steak and all glucose and protein and everything else through IVs, like all like at night, like they just basically hook it up and just all the nutrients were just going through there. I mean, I don't know if there was anything about a nasal cannula or what, but like these guys were just basically getting force fed through their veins and their nose and wherever else, all the time. And I just about peed my pants, reading it, but it took off. Like it had a ton of people commenting and thought it was just amazing. And I was like, this is incredible.
well, that goes back to the. I don't like I said. I don't want to measure anyone's intelligence, but that goes back to the pick Joe top pro who you think might not be uh, super bright, and tell me if you really think he has someone putting a. Think of the IV line you have to have. It's not a little IV. I
no,
mean, you have to have a thick. Think who
you're
does
talking
he
like an
have?
18 gauge
Yeah,
needle.
who does he have that's where is this guy that that's probably stoned 20 hours a day?
Mhm.
Is he really doing this every night? I mean, these guys that can't string a few sentences together. Yeah, I'm not. I really don't have any. I hate bashing people. I don't have any pro in mind, and I'm not. I'm just taking an artificial because there's. I don't want to make it sound like I'm bashing pros as though they're dumb because there's a ton of really intelligent guys, but these guys aren't doing that, and I don't know why. Why on the internet everyone thinks it's like, years ago when internet first came out, everyone was sure Dwayne Yates was taking a bunch of GH, then having his blood drawn and then stored in the freezer, and then the high dose GH blood reinfused into his body the next day before his workout. And it's like, come on.
Man, I got speaking of Dorian Yates, I got the pleasure of like being around him at Swiss, and like I got to sit next to him on the panel, which totally, I mean, holy crap, that was like the highlight of my adult life probably. And then got to see him speak the next day and talk to him and all that type of stuff. And he's like the most laid back, like he'll tell you anything. He doesn't give a shit. Like it's
Yeah,
awesome. And he's trimmed down a ton. He talks about now just like kind of he likes just like riding his bike and hiking and all that type of stuff. And it was just awesome because like he's like if you ask him like what he took, he's like, oh, I laid it all out already in muscular development. You're like, that was the real one. He's like, yeah. Why would I have not laid out like the real thing? Like what would I gain from not listing out the real thing? What would it possibly benefit me from not putting out what I actually took? Like if I said I took drugs,
I've
where's
already said I took them. Yeah.
yeah, what's gonna like come out and be worse than that? And I was like, oh shit, I don't know. So, but it was pretty awesome because I actually remember that article because of course I bought that muscular development and of course I read it and I was like,
I miss the old
that's
days.
what yeah,
There's
that's when I
something.
realized that my genetics were total shit.
Yeah, and the thing is as someone who's worked with people with amazing genetics,
Hmm. Hmm.
you really, really see And I always say this: bodybuilding is the one sport where people don't want to believe the genetics.
Mm.
No, they don't. People have no problem believing the genetic aspect in basketball.
Right.
No one thinks that. I say this every time, but no one thinks. If I just took what LeBron James took, I would be able to beat. And no one thinks that at any other. No one thinks football, no one thinks, well, if I just took what the 6'6", 280-pound defensive end that runs a 4.40 took, I would also be 6'6" and 280 pounds and run a 4.40. It's just bodybuilding, for whatever reason, is the one sport where people refuse to accept the genetic component.
Mm.
But I was talking about Rully Winkler earlier, but I read an article one time where the people at his gym said he was gaining like 3 pounds a week when he started training, and and I've seen Steve Kuklo, who as it's played out, probably isn't even, as far as the pros are concerned, he's not even a genetic freak. He's not a Rully Winkler or a Phil Heath.
Yeah.
And I remember him, gained 40 pounds in 9 months. I knew what he was eating, knew what he was training because he was my training partner. And you see the different levels in genetics. And I've worked with guys of all different genetics, and you see the guys. I have a guy right now who's worked as hard as anyone has ever had, and he's still probably 15% body fat at 245 pounds, and
Mm-hmm.
he's doing tons of cardio and starving. The nicest guy in the world, and he's got hardly any muscle, and you put that another one of my better clients on that same regimen, and he's 260 pounds, absolutely shredded.
Right.
When you work with guys, you realize the genetic component, and that's kind of where I still have an interest in competing, but where I realized where my genetics lie. I have good genetics for adding a lot of size, real shitty genetics for getting shredded. It might be on the cusp of where I could, if I really devoted my life to it, could possibly turn pro, but I would have to really lay it all on the line to turn pro.
Yeah.
Where in comparison, someone like Phil Heath turns pro not knowing what they're doing, cycling like a baby,
Right.
and like a figure competitor, and turns pro that way, which leaves all that room to progress to the Mr. Olympia level, where a guy like me would his max out would be the entry level into the pros, basically.
Right.
But guys just don't want to accept that genetic component. And there's other genetic components with Dorian Yates. I'm sorry for dragging this one out so long, but I remember a really vivid article he wrote where he was a schoolboy, and they had a contest of how many laps you could run around the track.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the kids quit at like 2 laps or 3 laps. Some of the kids quit after half a lap because they didn't feel like running. And then maybe it was at 9 laps in, was at like 2 miles, a little over 2 miles. It was him and one other guy. That guy quit that lap. And Dorian ended up running like 32 laps.
Yeah.
But he wasn't going to quit until he either died or they made him quit.
Right.
And school was over, they made him quit. And he learned that was part of his genetic component, was
Right.
the ability to just be obsessed and do something until he either died or had to quit.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's a huge part. I agree.